So this is a small group session, so I'd invite everyone to, if you want, turn on your video so we can all see you. Feel free to use gallery mode, speaker mode, whatever you'd like, so we can all feel like we're together in one place. Okay, I think everyone is here now. It would be best, though, if people do keep themselves muted when they're not speaking, just so there's not too much background noise, but I'm sure there will be chance for participation. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to our excellent facilitators, Diana and Jewel. Welcome, and thanks for hosting this session.
Thank you, Rachel. And welcome, everybody. We're really happy you're here. I'm Jewel Bystrova. And Diana, I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself or.
Go ahead, Jewel. I'll introduce myself after your brief intro and framing. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So usually we start. We're from the transition movement, and from more specifically the Inner Resilience Network, which is kind of the interpersonal and the personal aspects of our culture change-making work in the transition movement. And one of the things that we like to do as part of our cultural change making is that we start our sessions often with a grounding. So we'd like to spend like just a minute or two to start this session off with the grounding. And I'll guide you through that so that we can be really present for our session and be able to, be fully here and listen deeply to each other and ourselves. So take a moment, if you don't mind, and if it feels comfortable to you, to just sit up, and you can close your eyes if that's comfortable, and just take a moment to check in with yourself and just notice where your breath is without changing it in any way. Just getting really present to, your body, your breath. Where are you at right now? What are you bringing into the room? How does your body feel? Just really checking in with yourself right now. And then maybe when you take your next breath, you can just let it be a little deeper, inviting that breath to go deeper into your belly. Just letting your body kind of release and relax a little bit of any of the stress that you may have had in this day or that you might have brought in with you. Just letting your breath deepen and just let go a little bit. And taking a couple more of those deep belly breaths. With each breath, letting the breath be a little deeper and fuller. Softening the belly, feeling the weight of your body on wherever you're sitting, feeling the ground beneath you, the earth beneath you. Just taking this moment for yourself. And with the next breath, I invite you to take in this quote from Bayo Akamalafe, who says, my favorite quotes, he says, "Times are urgent. We must slow down. Times are urgent. We must slow down." Just take that in for a moment into your body, into your breath. What does that mean for you to slow down? Wonderful. Thank you so much for slowing down with me and Diana. Before we begin this session, you can come back with your presence into the room when you're ready. And I just invite anybody who's able to have their videos on if possible, just so we can see your beautiful faces and feel your presence. And I apologize for a little bit of background noise on my part. As you can see, I am outdoors. I thought it would be nice, but I didn't realize there might be cars passing by. So apologies in advance. So today, this session is about, Diana and I are going to introduce ourselves, and we're going to introduce a little bit, we're going to share a little bit about the transition movement itself, and then more specifically, the inner resilience network that we are part of, and what we're trying to bring to the transition movement, and how that applies to this conversation that many of the conversations that we're having at this summit around nonviolence and what that really means. And so more specifically with the transition movement, it's like, what are we doing on a practical nuts and bolts, local level to build systems that are not built on violence. So that's what we want to share with you a little bit. And obviously it's a huge subject. There's a lot to share. We're going to just be really these are just going to be like cliff notes, but both of us are available for any more conversation. And we also are going to share some events that we'll be having deeper conversation as well after this in the future. So there are other ways to learn more if you're interested. And so we're going to just frame a little bit, just share a little bit about that. And then Diana and I are each going to share a little bit about what it means to, to live nonviolently and how that looks in our local communities. And from each of our perspectives, and a little bit of, we'll each have a story an example to share with you. And then we're going to move into some discussion, and just wanted to see how you all are doing, check in with you and see what's alive for you, and have some questions for you to be considering around what it means to live, in a nonviolent way, and we'll share a little bit more about our perspective on that, so that you can have some thoughts to be seeding here. So a little bit about me. I'm Jewel Bystrova, and I'm the co-founder of the Inner Resilience Network, and I've been with the transition movement almost since the beginning. It started in 2005. It started in the UK. It was begun as just this really great idea by this guy, Rob Hopkins. Actually, it was a few people. Rob Hopkins got a lot of the press because he wrote the book and he's a great speaker. But really, it was just the idea that was very magnetic for people, because it was the idea that, hey, maybe communities should unplug from these greater systems that we're all buying into. We spend money on things, we buy stuff, we put our money into these systems, and a lot of it, we don't even know what we're supporting. And obviously a big part of the money that we do put into the system goes to violence, goes to things that are part of this dominator culture, and it goes to the military industrial complex. So, that's one piece of it, but it also goes to other systems that are extractive of the resources on our earth and causing environmental degradation, are oppressive to marginalized peoples. So there's so many reasons why to relocalize our efforts, our economy, our relationships, our resources, because we know where our money's going, if it's going in our own community. So we encourage alternative ways of economies. We encourage barter. We encourage alternative currencies. We encourage alternative energies. We encourage natural systems like natural energy systems. We encourage permaculture. So it's a multi-system platform. The transition movement is. It's comprehensive. It's all about, like, how do we want to live in our local communities, and where are we putting our direct resources, and how are they showing up for us in our lives? How are they supporting a thriving, healthy earth and healthy human community and all life? So that's the transition movement's ideal, you know, and it's got, you know, it's come a long ways. It's still got a long ways to go. There are initiatives all over the planet now. I forget how many. Diana, maybe you know the number. I know in the United States, I think there's over 400 initiatives. So that's a local community that a group forms, and it tries to get its community raise awareness and do local community projects so that the community becomes more and more aware and starts to unplug from the wider systems and plugs into the community. So it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense. To me, it made perfect sense when I heard about transition. It's like, yeah, that's how I want to be living. That's how I want to be spending my time. So that's the ideal, but the how to do it, the nuts and bolts of it is always this, you know, learning curve for all of us. And I realized early on that a big part of it was the culture, which was that, you know, we can unplug from the systems and we can have these ideals about living, you know, closer to the earth and in relationship with each other. But if we still have a mindset that is colonized, that is, you know, thinking in terms of the dominator culture, the us versus them, all of these ways of thinking that we're all deeply conditioned into, it will perpetuate, and it perpetuates in our groups, our local groups where we organize. We get in conflicts and we get in power struggles. It's just, it happens a lot. It happens all the time in activist groups everywhere. I've seen it. And so it was just like, you know, this is what I think we need to really be a big part of this, weaving into everything that we're doing, all the change making work that we're doing. We need to be weaving into it how to be with each other, how to shift our consciousness, right? How to shift our consciousness, how to learn tools and skills that will help us communicate with each other better, and how to do our own personal shadow work so that we can ourselves unplug in our minds and our hearts from a toxic system. So that's what we want to just share with you today a little bit. And I think I've spoken enough. And Diana, would you like to introduce yourself and your view of, and then we can both share a little bit of a story, some examples. So.
Well, if it's okay, Jewel, I'll go ahead and just do my framing and my examples and then pass it back to you for a little bit more. Yeah. So thank you all. I apologize. I had some tech issues. I'm on my phone, so it's a little bit hard to connect with the whole group, but we just offer heartfelt thanks. Obviously, Jewel and I are super passionate about this topic, which I'll say more about my perspective on as well. But just always very touched when people show an interest and share, possible areas that they've been working in around this as well. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. Thank you to my co-host, my lovely co-host and comrade, friend, Jewel, and a special big thank you to World Beyond War. World Beyond War, about a year ago plus, when I decided I wanted to get more involved in the link between militarism and the climate crisis. World Beyond War has just been such a leader in educational aspects of that work. And it's really changed my life. And I want to give a special shout out to Greta, who's not, well, Rachel, who was a huge tech support today, but whom I'm just meeting, but Greta's worked with us in different ways and just really, I think, gave a lot of support to this models and alternatives for a just transition session. So just really want to give a shout out there. And so I guess for me, like Jules said, research shows in the transition movement, one of the things that first caught my attention was that the Jules' work in the US, back at that time, I was living in Malaysia and affiliated with the UK version, but the whole idea that, moving toward our visions for more connected, nonviolent, collaborative cultures starts with how we communicate and work with ourselves and one another. And that we're not taught these skills in school, right? We still have, like Jules said, a lot of ways that you experience. Most of you, I'm guessing, are involved in community work, and many times people will say, I want to do things more collaboratively, I just don't know how. So that's where a lot of our work and passion comes from around the inner resilience. So now I'm back in the US, and I got connected with Jewel and the Inner Resilience Network, which is connected with the US transition. So anyway, what the quote that really I love to share as kind of a framing for this work is Dr. King's. He would say, means and ends must cohere because the end is pre-existent in the means. And the way I take that is that, just like Jules said, if we don't have these more compassionate and collaborative ways of being, as you know, in our families, in our communities, in our groups, we may end up with the most beautiful of visions, but perpetuating, like Jules said, some of those dominator or separation kind of ways. So I just wanted to give an example of some of the things, a couple projects that we've been, Jewel and I have both been involved with the Inner Resilience Network, and then a somewhat similar effort in my local community, just to kind of hopefully whet your appetites, or however you want to think of it. And then, as Jules said, break, well, it's a small enough group, I think we may stay all together, but hear from you. What are some of, your longings and the things that you're doing, and then hopefully cross-inspire or cross-pollinate more work in this way. So the two projects I wanted to highlight with the Inner Resilience Network that were near and dear to my heart that I've been involved with. One is we got a lot of requests early on when I joined the Inner Resilience Network with Jewel, as the founder of this work, for feedback, tools and skills for how to give feedback in a more effective way. And so that's something that's super near and dear to my heart, because what my core area of background in this work is nonviolent communication, also referred to as NVC. And so a wonderful colleague named Shanti and I did a series on moving from judgment-based feedback, which is pretty much proven to be quite ineffective, to needs-based honesty and building an appreciation culture. And it was a small group, but it was super well received. And I'm just really passionate. I just want to highlight that piece about appreciation culture. It's just something that can make such a difference in people's lives, especially volunteers. And so many times, like Jules said, we're in these urgent times. We don't feel we have the time, to take time to kind of acknowledge people and their gifts. But just like Jules said, that slowing down is something that I've tried to remember. It's not always easy, but slowing down and taking the time to appreciate folks. The other one is a collaborative toolkit. It's just being launched now. Jill might say more about that at the end. And I did a segment on nonviolent communication. And one example I want to give there is how simple practices or kind of supporting structures can help us live our vision. And the best example I like to give is, some of you may be familiar with the practice of rounds in sociocracy. And when one of the first transition group I was involved with, the steering committee, we had, of course, like everyone, beautiful collaborative visions, but oftentimes a few of us would share, and the quieter ones ended up many times not having a voice. And so this practice of rounds, again, many of you may know, it's very simple, but just when there's an important decision or anything like that, to make sure we go in a circle and each voice be heard, or at least have a chance to be heard. And again, I highlight that just because it shows even very simple practices, once we put them in place, can really help us, again, live those visions. Two more things, moving toward my closing, because of course we really want to hear from all of you, is after George Floyd's murder, those of you, I think pretty much even the non-US based folks by now, most of the world knows about the George Floyd murder. Like so many groups across the country, a small group in my community called now the Community Healing Collaborative, we got together to explore building more nonviolent and restorative approaches to community care and safety. And the two big things that we are very passionate about, one is active bystander intervention and de-escalation training. I think there's actually going to be another session on those kind of nonviolent approaches to community safety. So we do that kind of basic training. And a very simple story, because again, I don't want to take too much time. We want to hear more from you, but just a simple story is, after we did a training recently, actually it was, we just hosted it. The people that we've been studying with, I want to acknowledge them. It's the DC Peace Team out of DC, and they actually have paid nonviolent peacekeepers. So I just want to say put that out there. I mean, it's a beautiful vision, and it is happening in parts of this country. And so a woman, an older woman, actually older than me, after the training, when we asked for appreciation, she said, before I took this training, I would have felt if I was at a protest and cops were harassing like a Black Lives Matter member or something like that, I might have been too scared to stand behind her or support the person who was being harassed. But she said, now after receiving this training, I feel that much more empowered that I would either call someone over to stand there with me or just stand there and witness. So just sometimes those small steps toward greater community empowerment, that's what moves me. And that's what I think, those baby steps toward this kind of transitional work. And the final one is we've been asked, and we're looking to start, or we're planning to start a series in the fall on monthly skill and support sharing, because I think, as most of you have experienced, and Jewel and I talk about this a lot, there's such a hunger out there in this really heavy, heavy time. People need spaces to learn the skills, but also be heard and, learn skills of listening and hear one another around our pain, our visions, our grieving, those kind of things. And then finally, just want to say my final line, and again, it goes back to acknowledging World Beyond War, is that I believe this inner and interpersonal resilience kind of work that Jewel and I are talking about is like laying the foundation for then building our nonviolent organizing, intersectional organizing, right? That's the big buzzword now, but it's so foundational. We're not going to make it if the, climate change folk don't come together with the world, with the demilitarization folk and all that kind of work. And then finally building new narratives toward more peaceful worlds, building more peaceful systems the way World Beyond War is doing. So thank you all for your work in community. We're excited to hear from you. And again, I guess I'll pass it back to Jewel now. Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you, Diana. That was very rich. And by the way, apologies for everybody. It's not such a nice background. I got into my car because it's quieter. I thought it would be nice to be outside for this, but it was noisy. So anyway, yeah, so I want to just share a little story with you that I feel like is a good example of kind of an extreme example, actually, of what we're talking about, but is a real example of something that happened to me that I saw firsthand about, what it means to really meet the systems that we are trying to dismantle, that we're trying to, unplug from, with a nonviolent, with a nonviolent way of being, and what that does, and why that's so important for us to be doing this kind of work if we really want to build a world without war. So I went to Standing Rock. I'm sure you probably have all heard about that. I don't know anybody that hasn't. And I was there for quite some time and experienced many, many things, but I will say there were some poignant moments there that really, really stay with me. And, there was a lot of chaos and a lot of trauma, on all sides there, but there was a deep commitment by the elders, the spiritual leaders, to nonviolence and to holding a space of nonviolence. And really what that really means is like being in a spiritual way, being connected, staying connected to the earth, to each other, and really holding each other accountable to being in that space. And when that really was held and really happened, there were times when people were holding that space right up at the front lines, where they were literally had guns and, mace and everything aimed at them, and all kinds of, just intense, violent energy aimed at them. But there was, there were times when people were able to hold that nonviolent energy. It's like there's something that happens to you experientially when you really move into that deep space of nonviolence, where you just truly are unguarded, unprotected. You're very vulnerable, but you're not, because you feel a deeper strength in you and a deeper power. And when I've seen that really embodied and held, there were examples of where the guards or these policemen or whatever you want to call them, they were actually privately hired, but would break down and cry, would just put their guns down because they couldn't believe. It was just like so out of their box, so completely out of their understanding of reality, because they, like so many of us, are used to fighting and defending. And we automatically go in defending when we feel attacked. It's normal, it's natural, it's what happens. But to develop this nonviolent way and to really hold it in the face of violence, in the face of attack, is incredibly disarming. Amazing transformational power when it's really embodied. But to embody it is not always so easy, because we really have to work on ourselves. We really have to look within where we are in conflict within ourselves and root that out and hold a deeper spiritual space. And Martin Luther King was known to really hold that space, as well as many others I could name, but I'm sure you probably know many of them. But it's such a powerful, powerful way of being, to be in a nonviolent state, to truly embody it. And I really believe that is the way we're going to disarm and unplug from the violent culture that we are all unfortunately part of and have inherited within us. So I just wanted to share that story, and why we all both feel so passionate about, about weaving this culture into everything we do. And it's not about being wimpy and being weak. It's actually an incredible strength and power to be in a state of nonviolence. And I'm sure I probably don't have to tell any of you that, because you're already here at this conference. So with that, I think we want to check in with you all and ask you first. We're gonna have two discussion rounds. One is just, what's alive for you in this topic? And let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12 of you here now. So we're going to be lean of speech because we're not going to do breakout rooms, I don't think, unless Diana, do you think we should?
12, 12. I think ask if there's anyone in the group who has a strong feeling. We could do pair and share and then come back. Sometimes it gives more intimacy, but then the big group, we stay connected. So to me, that's the pros and cons. Maybe ask for 1 or 2 opinions from the group. Start the collaborative process now.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay,
Yeah.
so who's willing to just be short in speech but stay in the room, or who would like to share deeper and longer and do breakout rooms? Raise your hand if you'd like to share deeper and longer and do breakout rooms. And if you'd like to stay in the room and we'll just be aware of our airtime, raise your hand. Okay, looks like most of you. So we'll stay in the room, and we'll just be conscious of our airtime.
Okay.
So the first question is, well, of course, your name, but then maybe you could just share like 1 or 2 short things about what is alive for you specifically about this topic. I mean, like, what drew you here? So what we're going to do is I'm going to pick somebody, and then when you're finished, you pick somebody. That kind of keeps it going. So Diana, I'm going to pick you first, so you can pass it on.
What's alive for me? Yeah, I mean, we've shared a lot of what's alive for us, but in this moment with this group, with this very, very vital framing of a world beyond war, yeah, that vision that so many of us carry. I think for me, and what spoke to me so much when I first, met Jewel and heard her talking about the Inner Resilience Network, it's kind of that interface, I think, is a simpler way I would say what I framed before, like the interface between these new, more building compassionate and collaborative skills within ourselves how to listen better to ourselves and each other, speak from needs versus judgments, which helps us move from an either or way of thinking and speaking to more a yes and kind of way. All those skills, building those in community as we build our advocacy and our organizing, like I said before. But like Jules said, how do we do that? So building those processes into our meetings, for example, like the example Jewel gave of grounding at the beginning, check-ins to build connection, even just, this is the last thing I'll say because I want to put it back to you all, but even just building emotional health. So many people in this country have that intense, emotional health challenges. So even just sometimes a check-in, how are you doing? That can make such a difference. So that's where I'm at, and I will pass it to, like I said, my capacity for a big picture screen view is limited, Jewel. So maybe you pass it to
Yeah,
the first
I'll pick somebody. And just to remind you, just one or two sentences would be good.
Apologies.
We have a big group here. So let's see. I will pick Marjorie.
Hey, I'm calling from Montreal in Canada, and I don't know what that rock was about, but it sounds like some place where the Native people gather, and reconciliation is a big issue in Canada right now, and reconciliation is a program that is done in local families and local communities, and a lot of listening. The first part is just listening. So I find that when I'm listening to a lot, and I'm listening to the pain, I'm listening to a lot of sorrow, and that is making me feel a need for that quiet time even more in the morning and in the evening, to have at least 20 minutes of total silence, and where I'm just being and connecting with the universe. And so that's what's alive for me. And I'm a raging granny as well as a member of World Beyond War. So that also takes energy. And I'm also trying to do so much for the planet, making my own, trying to avoid buying anything in plastic. And I can also almost be violent to myself in that process because it's a lot of work. But that's alive in me. It gives me meaning. I'm trying to, if Mother Earth is on the verge of dying, at least I hope that it can be I'm taking care of her. It's like I'm taking care of someone who is in dire straits right
Thank you,
now, trying to
Marjorie.
take care of Mother Earth.
Thank you. And you want to pass it to somebody? You see somebody there, just pick somebody.
She's muted, so she couldn't be heard.
Okay.
Oh, I pass on to Mary Gerard.
Hi, I'm also in Canada, in Ottawa. Yeah, what I was thinking about when you were speaking was about how people who are protesting against arms fairs and other things like that, or trying to stop NATO or other things that we're doing, some of which Kimry mentioned, things going on in Montreal that are going on all over Canada, all of our efforts to speak out against war, that sometimes we forget that police are human beings as well. And we want to say, to really not have anything to do with them. And I understand that on a lot of levels, but I do also think that we need to find a way to treat police as human beings, and also to treat people who are doing things that we don't like in a nonviolent way, because I'm out there. I definitely believe that we more peaceful world. We need to speak out against war. But sometimes on my own personal level, I know that I struggle very much with my neighbor next door because he does things that really disturb me. And so I'm thinking, I have to find a nonviolent way to communicate with this person. So yes, that brings it down to home for me. But some other thoughts that I had, I don't have much time. Yeah, that's good enough. Good enough.
Thank you. And I just, you're in the right place. Just want to remind people, because we have several more folks and we've got another round of questions, just to keep it short, couple sentences. So let's see, how about Linda?
Hi there. I'm Linda, yes, calling in from Coast Salish territories on the western end of what's called Canada. I'm here just to find out more, find out ways to go. I'm also involved in a bunch of different movements and climate and that kind of thing. I'm a healthcare worker and trying to find ways forward to help people, I guess, to moving towards a well-being based society versus a wealth-based society, including that physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. That's in a nutshell. So looking for any ideas and solutions and ways to move forward, because there are lots of hills to climb on the way. And I was inspired by your story, Jewel, from Standing Rock. I would love to have witnessed that.
Yes, well, we can be it. And thank you, Linda. Thank you for sharing. You're in the right place. We're going to share more resources of ways to skill up with these things. So,
and I can pass it on to Libby.
Yeah,
she's close to me.
Yeah, great.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for your good work, Jules, and Diane, and everybody. I'm in San Mateo, California. It's hard to be brief when there's so much to talk about, so many things going on, but I'll just share that I was part of the original Beyond War back in the 80s. And I'm so happy that it's continuing today. And through that work, my husband and I started the Jewish-Palestinian Living Room Dialogue, which is in its 30th year, and we still meet monthly. And currently I work with Elders Action Network, and I am very, very concerned about the amount of money we spend on military that could be used to resolve so many issues, from health to education to housing. We really have to rethink what buys real security. And finally, I'll say that I go by there's kind of a mantra I have, that we are all interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent, and that an enemy is one whose story we have not heard. So if we could really build connections with the other and understanding how we are all one, it would make a huge difference. Thanks.
Thanks, Libby. You want to go ahead and pick somebody?
Sure. Darlene?
Hi, I'm Dorian. You can call me Dory. Hi, Diana. I know Diana. She's participated in actions with me in California for World Beyond War group. And thank you for hosting us all in this session. It's lovely and so inspired by you. And I was just thinking quickly that, as a lot of you are, got my toes dipped in the different peace groups and related groups all over the place. And intersectionality, I'm thinking, is very important, but also to build the bridges. I mean, this nonviolent communication and deep listening, I think, are essential. And I think so many groups don't realize how that would really change the way they operated and how we could collaborate a lot more. And so I'm really excited to learn more about that. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Pass it over.
Yes, I'll pass to Dick Iden.
Hi, hello. I also live in Southern California. I got pushed into the peace movement in 1965 when I had to decide whether to go to war in Vietnam or not. And I quickly made up my mind about that one, and have been against pretty much every US military intervention or expedition since then. I wrote a memoir about it called Paying the Rent. But anyway, I came here to just kind of see what was going on. I was part of the conference last year. I really enjoy the reports from the chapters, including the Southern California chapter. I didn't know anything about it. I'm anxious to see the billboard out by Palm Springs. And I learned so much. And Yuri, I think he was with us for a while, but he's gone now. Learned a lot about what's going on in Ukraine from him. It was amazing already, and I wanted to network. So I'm very glad to have run into Dorian. I hope we can contact after this, and I can maybe get involved in some of the good work that she's doing and some of the other stuff. I should say that I'm a socialist, and people are looking for answers. And I think if you look carefully, you'll see that the world has been run by capitalists for a long time, and it's not working out so well. But there's money in war, and I live in San Diego County, which is kind of a military area. We have major naval and marine bases here. And you're talking about transitioning from, from war mentality and a war economy, to a peace mentality and a peace economy. It's hard to talk to people because they're going to lose their jobs, right? I mean, what else are we going to do? How are we going to make money? How are we going to pay the bills? So it's a big conflict, and I'm glad to be sharing all of this with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. If you could pick somebody.
Gosh, Ross, I see a cup of coffee there. Is he really with us? Guess not.
Let's see.
I don't know who has not spoken. Sally, have you spoken?
Okay, Sally.
I missed a number of speakers because my computer froze as I was trying to figure out how to get everybody's faces on here. I only have the presenters, but anyway, I've given up on that, and I'm watching you one by one. I'll figure that out another time. But I live in also Coast Salish territory. I'm up on one of the Gulf Islands in.
Uh-oh. Looks like your sound went out, Sally.
Is
You're
there
muted.
someone else waiting to speak, Jewel? And then we can come back to Sally. Oh,
Okay,
there.
sorry. Our internet is variable here. I'm out in the sticks in the country in a little island. So
Okay.
my power just went off. Anyway, I'm a peace activist since Vietnam War. You have just helped me so much with this workshop. Thank you so much, because you've grounded me back in my work, which is as a mediator and restorative justice teacher and practitioner. I've been writing about peace and issues, but they're like NATO and capitalism and the world, and and now you've given me the the message to sink it right back into the work that I know and did for 30-40 years, right? I need to connect that up more, my peacemaking work with outer work, public work, and just bring those together, because of course it starts here, and that is something that I've learned about, and I can pass some on, and I thank you for the continued learning.
Thank you, Sally. You want to pass it on? Looks like we have Wyatt, Rachel, Grace. Those are three I see definitely left.
Okay, let's go for Grace. We all need Grace.
Grace, are you there? She may not be there. Let's try Wyatt.
Hi, yeah, I'm also in Canada. I'm in New Brunswick, just north of Maine, almost, well, kind of within sight of Maine, almost, just Passamaquoddy territory. And yeah, so I guess I'm new to this organization. Like I guess it's been since the war in Ukraine that I started to follow a few new things, and I've been completely and sort of exasperated since February 24th. I already was paying attention, as I have kind of my whole life, to global politics and just the business of war. But I'm a passionate environmentalist and a naturalist, and I build boats, make art. The boats I've been building have been sort of focused on low impact boating and things. But I just, it's just been a very trying time. And it's almost to the point now where it's been really hard just to focus on my work, because I almost have to become full-time with dedicating some aspect of my life towards changing the direction of our current trajectory. And a big part of that has been my complete and total kind of just disgust with the United States of America. And I'm surrounded by a small expat community here where I happen to live, because people moved up here mostly in the 70s. But I just can't believe how out to lunch almost everybody I know is when it comes to the business of war, and how much we have been compromised by the military industrial complex. And so I am, almost shaking right now just trying to talk about it. But like, I need these conversations, and I will try to write down people's names. And I actually didn't know anything about this conference until about 2 hours ago. And I don't even have a lot of money to pay the $20, but I did just to join, because it's almost like it's self-care to just, I'm actually trying to work here in my shop, because I'm behind on everything, because I haven't been able to pay attention to my job, and I'm self-employed. And so,
Well, we're glad you're here, Wyatt. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. And we just need to move on.
Yeah, well, good enough. I'm very glad to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, I really wish we had like 2 hours for this. This is like, so I'm just, everything you all are sharing is so important. But we have a couple more people, I think, that have not checked in. Grace, are you there? Or Stephanie? Cynthia, we've got 3 others, looks like.
How about Maureen? Did we hear from Maureen?
I don't remember.
Marie,
So just a couple
no.
sentences. What's
Mark,
alive
you.
for you? Your name and what's alive for you. Just a couple sentences.
Sure. My name is Maureen Barjon Oman. I live in the Albany, New York area. I am a member of a local women's coordinated effort to talk about peace, women against war, and our local Grannies for Peace. And I find after working over the last 20 years, constantly in anti-war work, that I am also, as Wyatt says, disgusted and overwrought. And this kind of conversation that really brings us back to the internal work that needs to happen in order to do the work that we see in confronting the world. I need it, because I think that the creative juices get blocked by anger and fear and rage. And so thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah. Thank you, Maureen. Yeah,
Cynthia?
thank you all.
Hello. Just a couple sentences. What's alive for you?
Cynthia Papermaster. I live in Berkeley, California, Ohlone territory. I work with Code Pink. I'm a local chapter coordinator of Code Pink. And what's alive for me is just the challenge of trying to figure out how to help this transition to happen from the war economy to the peace economy. And I'm looking for examples that have worked, and I want to put all my energy into that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Cynthia. And who's left? Grace, are you there, or Ross?
I see Stephanie is ready to speak. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I don't have too much to say. I just popped in. I was at another meeting. I live in Sonoma, California, and I guess I've spent most of my life participating in one form or another, visioning the future, and transition towns fit in there along the way. But it seems to me right now, I don't know if this is what's alive, but this is maybe what's dead, is that the world is basically heading into collapse, and all of our social structures are falling apart. So plus in comes climate change, unattended almost. And so it's scary and it's a mess. And I find it really hard right now to envision anything. And a lot of the visioning that I participated in before seems rather flimsy now, and pretty and happily idealistic, and not really pertinent to the fact that people are dying all over the world. I think the Ukraine war is what sort of pushed me over the brink to a kind of despair. So
Thank you.
that's enough for me. Thanks.
Yeah, let's go to Grace. Are you there? No. And let's see, who hasn't, Rachel, did you want to say anything?
Sure, I'll just say really briefly, yeah, really appreciating hearing what everyone said, but especially Wyatt, I really appreciated what you shared. And as someone who's been working really hard on this conference, like to hear from someone who's brand new to connecting with us, that it, like, yeah, that you're taking time in your workshop, in your wood shop to join, like, I don't know, it's really meaningful as an organizer of this conference. Personally, in this moment, I work with World Beyond War. I'm like super blessed to get to do abolitionist work as part of my paid work. I don't take it for granted ever. But right now I'm connecting to this actually at a very personal level. I'm going to give birth in a few weeks. I have a 5-year-old kid, and I'll hopefully have another in a few weeks. And like, yeah, this being deep in the muck of anti-war work and the military industrial complex, but at the same time, like, you have to believe in transition and hope if you're bringing a kid into the world, or else what are you even doing? So I'm connecting at that very personal level and really appreciating this workshop.
Thank you, Rachel. That's awesome. And let's see who's left. The only person I think that hasn't shared is Ross. I don't know if he's there or not, but Ross, I'm going to give you another chance here. Let us know if you're there and you want to just say hi. And if not, we'll move on, because we are actually, I don't know, we're not going to have time to do the second question go round in the circle. So we have two options. Diana, I want to check in with you. We have a second question that we wanted to present to you, which was, how are you seeing violence, or how are you imagining transforming the violence in your own lives? How are you seeing it show up in a very personal level? But that's obviously a big, Pandora's box to unleash. And obviously all of you are just really, it's really alive that there's a need to talk and to share and to express ourselves. And I'm really feeling that in this room. And I'm just feeling the tension of our time, how much time we actually have to actually talk. So I want to ask if you all want to break into pairs and have deep time for sharing for about 5 minutes. Let's see, we only have 15 minutes left of this whole session. So we could do like 5 to 7 minutes of a deep sharing and go into pairs with that question, or we could stay in the room and do popcorn, and only a few people kind of get to speak that way. So let's see a show of hands who would like to go into breakout rooms and pair up and have a deeper sharing. Raise your hand. No. I see one hand. Okay.
Jewel,
What? Yes.
Jewel, just a suggestion. Yeah, as you said, because we wanted to make sure we have time for the harvesting at the end.
Yes.
Well, first, before we move on, I too just want to deeply acknowledge, like Jewel said, it was so sad to have to kind of cut people off a little bit. We just so appreciate the heartfelt sharing, the passion, the theme, you know, of pain and despair and need for these conversations and skills. So just again, deeply honoring all of that. And maybe, as you said, Jewel, frame what the second one to me was about hearing what you are doing, which many of you already shared. And are there any aspects or work around this area that you're longing to share, that maybe we could start building some connections? We can share our what do you call it? Our contact information as well. But Jewel, do you want to just do that, present that second one and just a few people? And then I think we can just leave 5 minutes at the end for the closing and the follow-up resources.
Yeah, I think we should even narrow it down a little bit more and just say, what's one thing that you're, you know, you're imagining transforming in your life, that, or that you see needs to be transformed, and maybe you don't know how to do it, but just something that's alive for you that you're really wanting to meet and find something, some way to transform it. So,
Jewel, can I just, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we were saying either personally or in community.
Okay, yes, yes. Yeah, either in community or personally. And yeah, I just want to echo what Diana said, which is that, you know, generally at the Inner Resilience Network, we hold big spaces where we really listen and we love to share deeply. And so we do have a deep dive that you can join, where we're gonna do exactly that. So so this is more like a teaser, you know, you know, just kind of opening up, but just really want to acknowledge everybody's hearts and minds in this. So the question is, Diana, do you want to answer it first and kind of get everybody going? But the question is,
I don't want to answer, but I just wanted to make sure we allowed either the individual or the community longings that you have to move forward in this kind of work, if that's clear enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll start it off, just example an answer. What is something that I'm feeling like, what is I spend a lot of time thinking about, like I really want to find an answer. I really want to transform this. It's affecting me personally deeply in my community. And that is conflicts I get in with other people that I'm working with, you know, misunderstandings and miscommunications that end up making it challenging to get projects done. And that's something I'm very, very actively trying to understand, you know, how to transform on a wider scale. Like that's what we're doing, you know. So that's my answer. Who would like to share on that question? Yeah, go ahead, Marjorie.
Yes, I'd just like to say very briefly that I feel a need right now to attend to welcoming my feelings, whether negative or positive, before they end up being brought into action in some violent way against myself or against others. And to have more understanding, a change of attitude, compassion, for somebody mentioned, for the people that I don't agree with, and the people that are suffering the same sorrow that I am.
Thank you, Marjorie. That was
Thank you, Marjorie. Yeah. Yeah.
So go ahead and put your hand up if you want to speak, and we'll call on you. Libby?
I would like to know how we can help people connect war with the climate crisis. To me, the fighting and militarism and where we spend our money and the results of all of that are definitely having an effect on the climate crisis as well. And I'm not sure it's something that a lot of people realize, that they go hand in hand. So we really need to be thinking about the whole big picture and how we can respond as individuals to a whole new way of thinking, what you're talking about, our connection to the living system. And violence of any sort is killing the living system. So to me, there's a lot of education and information that needs to be just shared deeply and widely.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I just wanted to add one sentence to the gloomy picture I drew before, which is that, yes, I think things are in collapse, but collapse could be a good thing. it's just going to be a difficult thing. And I think it's hard at this moment to see where to fix it, except to build community, which I think is really critical. Like for us to be in greater, deeper connection and wherever we live with whoever lives next door, and be prepared for whatever comes, to be able to help each other and support each other. I think that's where it is right now. That's my feeling. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie. Well,
Sally has her hand up.
Sally, well, you had your hand up. And then,
Yeah, just to follow on what Stephanie said, I think that is so wise, and I thank you for that. Appreciate it. My challenge is to try to connect, to try to help myself and others make the links between our communities and the nonviolence and caring that we practice in so many of our. That's my challenge, is how do we think of ourselves as one global community and really embody the interdependence that we have. I find that the self-satisfaction drives me crazy with our local communities. So how do we make those links to our shared humanity?
Sides 4. Thank you, Sally. Ukraine. So, whoops, somebody's got some kind of a digital voice there. While we're waiting for the next hand to go up, I'd like to read Ross's introduction in the chat. He said he was having trouble with technical. So he says I'm having trouble finding people that will talk about the Ukraine war. It seems that the previous anti-war protester around here must have switched to supporting sending weapons to Ukraine to kill Russians. I am reading about alternatives to and ways to overcome widespread nihilism. So that's Ross sharing. Thank you, Ross. Anybody else would like to share?
If I could just say, because I think that one's really, really important. Ross, World Beyond War, we don't have time, sadly, to get too into it, but World Beyond War, in conjunction with War Resisters Network, Dari knows a lot of them, I'm sure Rachel does, has been doing sessions on exactly what you spoke of in such a rich and collaborative way that has given me so much healing around what you're saying. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, Diane, I'm really glad that you responded to that, because there's so many things people brought up that I wish we could stop and just like really.
I know, of course.
And I just want to say though that I don't think I mentioned this, that when I've worked in transition groups and in transition groups, which is anybody that's working to localize their community and really, build alternative systems, I have never been happier. There's a deep joy that comes bubbling up, and it's real. And it's in spite of all the other crazy stuff that's happening in the world. I still know all that stuff's happening. It's not denial, but there's a deep joy that happens when I engage in these transition activities. And I just want to share that with you all, because it is possible. So anybody would like to share? We have maybe a few minutes left. Diana, what do you think?
Yeah, let's see, where are we? Yeah, no, I think if because especially, again, we felt sad. There's such an energy and we just love to hear. So if you do want to share, please don't be shy. We can take maybe 2-3 more minutes to wrap this up before we move to our closing. Yeah.
I might say something kind of following on what Ross was saying. I'm finding that a lot of people are taking sides in the Ukraine war. They're for Ukrainian, they're for Ukraine, they're for sending weapons, or they're for the Russian side, believe it or not. But as anti-war activists, let's call for a ceasefire. Let's call for negotiations. Let's not take sides in a war. We don't want war. We're against war. So I just, any ideas, any thoughts out there of how to deal with this? It's just really putting me in a lot of despair that people I know are taking sides. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was really important insight to add. Thank you.
Ross, I will just make it very brief, and Julian, I'm happy to stay a few minutes afterward. I don't know if Rachel can do that or it's okay, but for example, War Resisters Network, and again, Dari and Rachel will have more resources. Code Pink, World Beyond War have done, for example, a lot of education around NATO. So many people were speaking to the ignorance of Americans. Unless you seek out that information from these groups, we don't learn it mainstream here, unfortunately, right? And those groups are working, for example, on educating about NATO and all the harm that we've done through NATO to build up to what's happening in Ukraine. So that's one example of what those groups are doing. But yeah, if Rachel can share others, or Dari or anyone, that would be great. Thank you.
I'll double dip and add as a Canadian that when I came back from Peru, I wanted to inform myself. I took the course on American military history and then on Canadian military history that was put out by, and then I took the one with Eve Engler on Stand on Guard for Whom? And we're standing on guard for money. And then now I'm reading that book about the alternative to war, peaceful, nonviolent world community, global community. But I really think there isn't that much time. The way how climate change is going, where our situation is very dire. But I think that we need to attend to ourselves and to live fully and take care of what we have and be appreciative of what we have, because it might be the last time we're going to see bees. I keep wondering, when are bees going to totally disappear? How long are the birds going to be around? And so it's that kind of thing. We need to gather, be compassionate, and be caring with ourselves and with other people and with the planet as we move along into the unknown, really.
You know, thank you so much for sharing that. I think because Marjorie, I'm thanking you and everyone who's been sharing, but on what you just shared, maybe to wrap up this section, again, we'd love to keep hearing from everyone, and hopefully we'll have opportunities in other scenarios and spaces. But yeah, I just wanted to say a line that really deeply moved me. There's this trainer, Kazuhaga. He's a nonviolence trainer that some of you may have heard his name. He has this line and he says, may we do this work, all of this kind of stuff we're talking about, the inner and the interpersonal, so that we can lead with brokenheartedness. Because it is a time of despair, but how can we come forward in that pain, but with open, loving hearts, the way you all spoke of, so that we don't end up perpetuating the actual anger and conflict that we're struggling against, right? So thank you all just so deeply for your heartfelt sharing, your work, your advocacy, just so many layers of work that you all are doing. Deeply inspired. Hope to follow up. Hopefully, again, some of you who are very, very enmeshed can share some of the resources in the chat. Rachel, maybe you can speak to what you share as follow-up in the conference. And then, Jewel, do you want to move to the closing, or if you have any other words?
No, I appreciate your highlighting all that, Diana, and yes, please do put in the chat any resources that you'd like to share. I'll be putting the list for if you want to sign up for our Inner Resilience events. We're going to be hosting a deep dive on nonviolence, and that's a place where we will have space to really deeply share, and that's on September 6th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll after I'm putting up if you want announcements, that's in the chat right now. And if you want to sign up just specifically for the September 6th deep dive discussion, that's here in the chat as well. So go ahead and do that. And then we also have a monthly deep listening space every second Monday of the month, where anybody is welcome to come and just deeply share and listen to each other. This is one thing that we really want to hold, is how important it is for us to have spaces to share with each other and to drop in and to just feel what's going on. And instead of just like, being out in the world, like in the hamster wheel, right? Like that's our culture. So it's like, we began this session with a grounding and talking about Bio's quote saying, times are urgent, we must slow down. And so I'm just repeating that, because that's, compassion is probably even more contagious than conflict. Compassion is contagious too. And when we get into a compassionate, nonviolent frame of mind, when we connect with others in a deeper way in our local communities, doing really good projects, that has a ripple effect. And we will create these little hubs. Margaret Wheatley said, she believes the future likely scenario is we will have these hubs, these islands of sanity in a sea of chaos. So let's create those islands of sanity. And the islands of sanity are, we are building this culture of appreciation, of compassion, of nonviolence, of deep listening, of deep caring for each other, of deep connection with our communities and with the earth. And we're doing that together. We really are doing this, and people are doing this all over. And we can just believe in it and we're going to do it. So yes, the world is falling apart. And meanwhile, we are unplugging. So thank you all for being part of this. And any last words, Diana? Those were mine.
I already shared before, and I know we are at time, and I want to give Rachel a minute, but just once again saying how deeply, deeply honored I am. And I think it's a reminder of how we need this to fuel well, fuel is not the right word, but just support each other in carrying on the struggle. In Spanish, it's the lucha, right? That ongoing struggle to do everything Jules said, connect and support each other in rebuilding, advocating and rebuilding. Rachel, do you have any final words?
I just want to thank both of you for holding this space. And I have to say, as one of the organizers of this conference, it's very hard to make the concession to do an online conference after many years of doing in-person conference. And the reason that we get so bummed out about it is that sometimes we worry we won't have these spaces of like more deeper and intimate and vulnerable connection. And I feel like that actually really happened in this space. And so I'm not going to say online is the same as in person. Of course it's not, but this felt like a really special space where we actually connected as people sort of through our computers, like ignoring them as little windows to each other instead of sort of getting all bogged down in the tech world of it all. So thank you for holding that space for all of us. And I obviously I'm biased here because I helped with the program, but I actually really think that a lot of what we're doing tomorrow is some deeper dives into some of what came up in this session. So if folks are able to make it back to the conference tomorrow, I think you'll find there's one session that's specifically about how do you have meaningful conversations with people that you disagree with in a respectful and a nonviolent way. There's other sessions about how can you personally be part of investing in a peace economy and about transitioning through starting with like your resources, your little life towards the world we want. Anyways, I think that people will find that this conversation will continue in other ways if you are able to join tomorrow. But thank you so much, Jewel and Diana. Let's thank them all as we can through our screens now. And yeah, I hope we can continue to connect throughout the weekend and beyond that.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you all. It was really, I wish I could give everybody a hug.
I know. We can do this on our screen. We can do virtual hugs on our screen.
Yeah, virtual hug.
Thank you all, beautiful activists and community connectors. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.